Hello, friends. We're here today again on this 5th of May, and we are going to talk about finding yourself. Morning Coffee for the Soul comes up here on Kardec Radio, also on Kardec Radio app, and you can always listen on live stream as well. Now, Kardec Radio brings up so many good things, and one of the things that I was so lucky to be invited to do is to bring a little bit on the psychological aspect as well as the spiritual aspect of a topic every Sunday morning, and that's what we're here to do. Every Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's New York time, we're going to talk about a different topic, and you guys choose the topic, so you're welcome to share. Today's topic, one of the viewers asked to talk about finding herself. Um, how how do you know who you are? What are those conflicts that we go through as far as searching and always understanding if you are really who you portray who you are? Teresa Castro is here already. Good morning, Teresa. So, finding yourself, why is that important? Well, because it's you. That's number one. Finding yourself is a topic in which we ought to take it with the respect that it deserves. Many times we put so many masks. How many of us wears a few masks in one given day? We have the mask that everything is okay. We always have to put up these things that these we have to have different personas, correct? In the psychology term, this persona is this person that for a certain amount of time we become to accomplish this purpose that we need. So for my boss, perhaps I have a big smile on my face all day and I have this mask of who I am for that person. Then again, I have this mask for my professor, of the good student, maybe. I have a mask sometimes for my children, and you can all have different masks in one day. You have to be the strong parent, the one that's got their stuff together. And that's one of the masks you might wear. Now, we all have different masks, and we all, if we don't pay attention, we might get lost in all of these masks and forget who we are. If I am finding the volume, let me see here. Someone asked to increase the volume. Let me try here. Did it get any better? Any chance to increase? Okay, I did some increasing on the volume. Hopefully it's a little better now. And I have a little cold, so my throat might be at fault there. But again, if we are to search for truly who we are, any of those masks that we're always wearing, any of the masks that I have in a certain day, which one of those is you? Which one is truly the person that you are? Are you the person that wears the mask as a parent, as a spouse, as a child, as a student, as an employer, an employee, as a spiritist? Are you the spiritist only at the spiritist center, or are you a spiritist every day in every place that you're put in? I had asked one person, I do different lectures at different places, and I was talking to someone, and I asked this person if she would do a lecture, a spiritist lecture, a Christian lecture at a non-Christian place. And the interesting answer I got was, of course not, she said. Why would I put myself in a situation where the atmosphere is not Christian? And then I said, but if you were invited to speak there, of course they would receive you with respect because you are a guest at their church, whatever church that may be, and all they want is to listen to what you have to say. Would you accept? And the person said no. And that did not surprise me because most of the people will not. They want to know exactly where they're going in order, excuse me, in order to put themselves in a situation. Now, I'm going to talk about knowing yourself in that context, because if I know myself, I do not fear the place that I go. because I am so sure of who I am. So if my material is Christian and I am a Christian and I am a spiritist, I don't know any spiritists who are not Christian. Um, if they invite me to speak in the name of Christ in a place that has never heard of Christ, perhaps that is the only chance I'll ever have to speak at that place. And perhaps some of those people that are listening, that the only time I'll have a chance or they'll have a chance to hear about Christ is through me. So I absolutely would accept. Now, some people may get shocked because we even see sometimes some lectures that won't go to certain places because the places do not connect to the message they're having. However, the public might be ready to hear what you have to say. So if you don't know yourself, you might stumble and you might not put yourself in situations that might test who you really are. You see where I'm going with this? Now, when you are certain and when you are sure of who you are not easily manipulated. Now, I put a post on my personal Facebook the other day, and it created a lot of discussion, which I love. I don't like controversy that brings that ill atmosphere, but I love discussions. So these discussions came because I posted the certain phrase. I put down that it's more dangerous. Those who manipulate are less dangerous than those who are easily manipulated. Now, I wanted to know if you agree with me or not. But so I'm going to leave it there, and in a few, we'll come back to that. Again, those people who manipulate, in my opinion, this is Deborah's opinion, are actually less dangerous than those people who are easily manipulated. Okay? We'll come back to that. Now, why am I talking about knowing yourself? Well, in the Spirits book, in question 919, when Kardec asks the spirits about how do we change, how do we, in a certain way, how do we know who we are? How do we get better? How do we progress? Kardec's, the spirit of Saint Augustine will answer. In the first sentence of the answer, he says, an old wise person, let's put it that way, and he was referring to Socrates, had already told you a long time ago, know thyself. So, and then it continues on, and Kardec will ask, well, how do I know myself? What do I do? And St. Augustine will say, well, at the end of the night, examine what you've done during the day. Examine everything. Examine your conscience. Have you sinned? Let's put it in those quotes. Have you sinned against God? Has anyone any complaint about you through the day? Have you done everything in the fullest power that you could have done? So in other words, have you been the best person? Have you re-examined your day? And are you okay with that? So if you are, that's great. If you're not, then you have a new chance through the next day. Why is that important? Because the more I know myself, the more I re-examine my actions. And the problem is, a lot of times we don't want to re-examine our actions because a lot of times we allow pride to get in the way. We allow pride to say everything I did is fine, and there's a reason why I did everything I did. And I don't want to admit that I made mistakes. And I'll only hide behind this other mask that I'll create. This mask of someone that I'm not. So knowing who I am, part of wanting to know exactly who I am and getting better at who I am consists in having a very honest look at yourself without your masks. You are not the mask of an employee. You're not a mask of a parent. You're not the mask that you wear for your spiritist center. When those masks fall down, the very core, that spirit is you. And you can only lie to yourself. Actually, I hear that with 15 minutes, you can actually charm anyone and believing anything that you want them to believe. But past 15 minutes, you better know what you're talking about. So you really need to know who you are. But I don't know. That's the question. I don't know. Maybe I am that mask. Well, those are all little pieces of you. But if you want to know who you are, you have to actually, in your mind, look, accept the mistakes that you have made, correct them. It's very related to correcting our past mistakes, of knowing who we are. Because the more that we put things back and don't admit that we've done, the more um, farther, I guess, we are from truly getting to know our essence. And we know what we've been in past lives. Just look at everything that attracts you. So sometimes we talk about, the past. I'm not so concerned about that, because if you want to know who you were in past lives, just pay attention to everything that tempts you, everything that you're tempted to do, everything that you're so um, called. And you certainly will know, you have an idea of what you had also been called in the past. But as of now, so I can know my tendencies. I know who I am by all my tendencies, things that I almost in an innate state do. But then I can get to know myself by my everyday actions. I'll give you an example. I used to work in a police department for a few years, 6 years to be exact. And we used to have the Super Bowl pool. You would give certain amount of money or whatever, and then if your team won, then you would get the whole thing. Now, I know nothing about football, American football. I know Brazilian football, but American football. So you would pick your team and you would pick the scores, and then if that came up, I still don't know, as you can tell, you would get all this money. Now, I would pick the teams based on their cute uniforms and their names. And then I would throw the numbers based on the numbers I liked. There is absolutely um, no skills on what I did. But somehow I would always, from time to time, win during football season. And people were amazed because I was the one that mostly won the pool. And I would get all this money. And again, that was back, oh, I don't know, close over 15 years. And it was something we did. So football season, I do not, after studying and studying, I don't agree with any type of gambling anymore. And at the time, yeah, I was 19 and I didn't see it as gambling. I would put $1 and still, that was back in the day. I don't think it's wise to do it anymore. But at the time, I would always win. So the point was, whoever didn't know themselves, sorry, the point was, this one guy, um, when it was the Super Bowl and it was a lot of money, he decided to do different. He said, let's not do it this way, and let's all buy a lottery ticket. And then I don't know what he did, but then I gave my money. And then I asked him to check if I won. So what he told me, it kind of sums up knowing yourself. What he told me was this. He says, Debbie, I am not going to hold on to your ticket because it's a lot of money. If you win, it is so much money that I do not know if I would actually tell you that you had won. You see the point of this whole thing? Because he had told me that already was very jealous. He was not a jealous person, but he was always, kind of surprised every time that I won on the Super Bowl pool, because I didn't have any skills. So that created already some friction between me and him, because he knew the teams, he knew scores, but he would always lose. So when I won, he didn't like it. In a way, it was like, why is this woman always winning? So when it was the time for a big prize, what he did was, I want you to hold on to your ticket, because if I win, great. But if you win, I don't know if I would switch the ticket and justify in a certain way, because you're young and you have your whole life, you can make all this money, but I'm already an old man and I have children and my kids are going to college, so I need the money more than you. Do you see, my friends, what knowing yourself in our everyday life? Because we can talk about the doctrine, we can talk about spiritism all the time, but if we don't bring it into our everyday lives, if we don't give examples, this is my opinion, and I think this works. If I don't bring this into my everyday life, things that do happen to us, then we can't put it into practice and really truly know ourselves. That is why I like to give examples of real situations, So that is a classic example of him, this man, knowing himself. He knew that he was jealous. He knew that if he won the lottery, or if I won the lottery, but if he was holding my ticket, he knew that deep inside he might have doubt um, to give me what was mine. Are we able to truly put ourselves in the future and think about what we would do? We like to say yes. We like to say that if today we pass a person who's hungry, we would feed them. We like to say that we would not slap someone if they slapped us first. We would like to say all these things, but until we truly know ourselves, until we truly are honest with ourselves and say, you know, I don't know if I would do that. That is truly when you begin to know yourself, when you are honest and admitting, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I could do that. People like to hide behind a mask of goodness. Now, when we know that Jesus said good, when this rich man came to him and says, oh, good Jesus, good prophet. And Jesus immediately said, only my Father is good. Why? Because Jesus he still hasn't reached God. He is still, his distance between him and God is still immense. So he knows. Now think about it. This is Jesus saying that he is not good, that good is only God. When we start to take our masks off and we say, you know, when I step on the podium, I say all those things. But in reality, I know my fears. I know I'm nothing that I'm talking about. Then our next lecture will be a little more humble and you will feel better. When you start to be truer to yourselves, you will immediately feel less conflict between your mind and your body. We did a live on dissonance, cognitive dissonance, and you can look it up here on Kardec Radio, cognitive dissonance. And that's that feeling of something that you truly believe and something that you do. That ill feeling that you know in reality what you ought to be doing and what you do. And that discomfort is cognitive dissonance. And so the more we experience, the more cognitive dissonance, the more illnesses, the more diseases we will have. So it's important to know that our bodies are a mirror of our soul. So if my soul is in harmony, if I am in harmony with who I am, you see, you don't need to be perfect. That's the beauty of it. As long as I know who I am, as long as I'm searching, and again, if the topic is finding yourself, is being as honest as you are with who you are. If I understand my mistakes, but I am trying and I am truly putting into practice, not just saying, oh, this is who I am. Oh, I just talk too much. Oh, I just lie all the time. That's knowing yourself and doing nothing about it. So that's really being a hypocrite because you know that you ought to be better. You know what to do, but you don't. So that's laziness in a simplest sense. That is not being a spiritist because being a spiritist means work, always trying to work. It doesn't mean to be perfect at all. It just means that you have to always work at it, not just put the mask of a good spiritist or anything, good anything. You have to what? Admit who you are. I admit my faults. I admit, but admitting also means that you have to ask for forgiveness for yourself and for the forgiveness of others. And you also have to do something to correct that. It's very easy to say, I'm sorry, isn't it, friends? When we say, I'm sorry, very easy. The problem is, what do you do after that? Well, you have to at least try to repair the damage you've done. That's part of asking for forgiveness. That's part of being sorry for something you've done. And that is part of finding yourself, finding a better version of yourself. Another component is stop comparing yourself to others. When I admit that I don't have a great voice to sing, then I don't keep either bashing those who sing well or trying to be someone who I'm not or giving excuses why I can't sing. I simply admit it. And then I look into my other talents. So when I compare myself to others, it's such an unfair thing to me and to the person because everybody has a different history. Everybody has a different past. And that is why they are where they are and they truly are not you. So when you give up this idea of competing with others, then you begin to do this work of knowing yourself. Now, going back to that question I made in the beginning, when I said that it's more dangerous to be a person who is easily manipulated than those who manipulate. Well, I'll explain why, and it has everything to do with knowing yourself. When you know yourself, you are not easily influenced. You can be influenced, we're influenced all the time, but you're not manipulated, better said. Why? Because you already have your stance. At the same time, you're flexible to listening. You have to have flexibility to listen to others because changing is a great part of a human being. We change all the time. And when I hear people saying, I'm like this, I'll never change, or I've been this way all my life, or no, I already have my opinion, that's it. Well, that to me shows pride and it shows rigidity. When you're so rigid that you don't want to be flexible to other ideas or to listening, that is not something to be proud of. On the opposite, that is your pride speaking. But at the same time, when you are not easily manipulated, and we're talking about influence is really anything around you. Manipulation is when someone will, excuse me, influence you with their actions. They will actually um, make you do things. They will actually um, a little more than you can be influenced by anything without any action, but manipulation involves action. And when you allow yourself to not have your own stand, then you will be easily manipulated. When you don't know yourself, you will be easily manipulated. You see, there are very few manipulators in the world. There's not that many. The problem is the masses are easily manipulated. If we have one great general, sorry about the word great, but if you have one um, dictator who will ask the population to do awful things, he is not as big as a problem as the masses who will allow themselves to be manipulated. You see, because they don't know themselves. Once you understand who you are, once you understand that you are not for sale, once you understand that your conscience is not for sale, once you understand, and we have to be careful because most people have a price. And again, we actually have to understand what is my price. We all have a price in a way. Because if someone took one of my children hostage and they asked me to do something awful, I may have my price and do that awful thing to get my child back. You see, we have to be very careful to say that I will never or I will always. Because again, in different situations, we might do things that we never thought we would. The most honest thing we can do is align ourselves with who we truly are. That is how we get to know ourselves better. When we look at situations, when we exercise compassion, then we start to being able to put ourselves in other people's shoes and then learning a little more about ourselves. When we stop judging, we will also know a little bit about ourselves. Friends, I wanted to end this morning coffee for the soul, really asking you to understand that no matter who you are or no matter who you think you are, we have one route, and that is to perfection. When Jesus said that you can do everything he does and even more, he meant it. Either we take his words as serious words and truth, or we don't, or we pick and choose. I choose to take his words and his teachings as truth. So when he says that I can do everything he does and more, that means that maybe not yet, but I will. And when I know that the prisoner, when the mugger, when the president, when anyone is also my brother and my sister, and someday we'll be together, then I understand that I am an individual who's learning about myself, and he or she also is an individual learning and doing the best they can. And then we reach the same goal. So why all the bickering, all the fighting now if we know we're going to be holding hands all the way down there, right? So let's think about it. Let's have more compassion. Let's forgive ourselves and others a little more. And let's say, I may not know who I am, but I'm going to search and I'm going to forgive and I am going to do this work to really having more compassion because nobody truly knows who they are. We're always finding this. And the way to find yourself is to really examine, to really be honest with you, to stop comparing yourself to others, to drop the mask of hypocrisy. And that will immediately relieve you from all these conflicts, all this chaotic context in your mind and your body, as illnesses, as mental illnesses. Be as honest as you can with yourself. Be the same person that you are so far on Facebook, on social media, at church, at a party. Once you have that sameness, if that's a word, then you will start to truly get the essence of, yeah, that is me. That is not me with a mask. I truly behave the same way in all different situations. Thank you, friend. And if you want to leave any comments here, or if you want to leave any topics that you want for next week, it'll be great. And I want to say hi to a few friends who are here with me. Teresa Castro, Adriana Andre, Glady is here with us, Dora is here with us, Taylor, and we have Taylor Martins saying, hi, Deborah, good morning, good Sunday, good morning, and good Sunday to you, to all of you. Nayli saying good morning to you. And Teresa asking about topic requests, decision making. I can do that. We can do about decision. So next week, if you're all okay, we'll talk about decision making. Okay? Thank you, friends. And I will see you next Sunday. Share this if you like it. And anytime you have questions, if I know the answer, I'm here for you. Have a wonderful Sunday. God bless you all.